All right, welcome. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most dynamic and, honestly, powerful forms in the entire Arabic language, the imperative verb. You might know it as Fe'l Amr, Fe'l Amr. And trust me, it does so much more than just tell people what to do.
And that really gets to the heart of it, right? How can the very same verb structure be used to give a strict order, make a polite request, and even offer up the most humble prayer to God? Well, the secret is in the amazing versatility of the Fe'l Amr.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll pin down exactly what the command verb is. Then, we'll walk through step by step how you actually build it. After that, we'll see how it changes for different people you're talking to. And then comes the cool part. We'll explore all the different meanings it can have. Finally, we'll see it all come to life with some powerful examples from the Quran. All right, so let's get right into it. What exactly is this Fe'l Amr we keep talking about?
So, at its core, the Fe'l Amr is the command verb in Arabic. Its whole job is to directly address someone and ask them to do something. But, and this is the key, that ask can be anything from a boss's command to a friend's advice to a deeply personal prayer. And the most important technical thing to remember, it's always built from the present tense verb.
Okay, so let's get our hands dirty. How do we actually make one of these verbs? It might look a little intimidating at first, but trust me, there's a super clear 4-step blueprint that just works, every single time.
Okay, let's break this down with an example. Let's take the verb you worship, ta'budu. Step 1, we just chop off that present tense prefix, the ta at the front. Easy enough. That leaves us with u'budu. Now step 2, we can't start a word with a silent letter, right? So we bring in a little helper, an alif called Hamzatul-Wasl, right at the beginning. Now we have i'budu. Step 3 is the big one, giving that alif a vowel. You just look at the middle letter of the root, in this case, the B. The rule is super simple. If that middle letter has a dhamma sound, our new alif also gets a dhamma sound. If it has a fatha or kasara, the alif gets a kesra. Here it's a dhamma, so we have u'budu. And finally, step 4, we make it a command by putting the last letter in a state called Majzoom. For now, just know that means changing that final vowel to a silent sukun. And boom, ta'budu becomes u'budu, worship.
Okay, so that's the rule for talking to one person. But what about everyone else? Well, that basic rule we just learned is the key to unlocking all 6 of the imperative forms you'll ever need.
So here's the full set for our verb to worship. You can see the one we just made, u'bud, for a single male. Then for 2 males, it's u'buda. For a group, u'budu. For a single female, u'budi. For 2 females, it's the same as the guys, u'buda. And for a group of women, u'budna. See that consistent dhamma on the first letter all the way through? That's our rule in action.
Now let's look at a different verb, to make, ij'al. The middle letter here has a fatha, not a dhamma. So remember our rule from step 3? What happens when the middle letter isn't a dhamma? That's right, the helping aleph gets a kasra, that sharp ih sound. So it's not uj'al, but ij'al, ij'al. And you can see that kasra sound carries all the way through the conjugations. The pattern of the endings is the same, just that initial vowel has changed.
Let's do one more just to really nail this down. To drink, shariba. Same deal. The middle letter doesn't have a dhamma in the present tense, so the imperative kicks off with a kasra. Ishrab, ishraba, ishrabu. See? Once you get the hang of that middle vowel rule, the whole pattern just clicks into place. It's really predictable.
Okay, so we've got the grammar down. But this is where things get really interesting. Because while the grammatical form is pretty rigid, the meaning can totally change depending on the situation. It all comes down to the power of context.
You can think of the Fe'l Amr as wearing a bunch of different hats. Sure, it can be a straightforward command, but it can also be a humble request or a prayer, a dua. You can use it to give some friendly advice, to grant permission, and yeah, sometimes even to issue a threat. But one of its most profound uses is for supplication, when you're expressing humility and need.
Take this beautiful example. Rabbi ighfirli, my Lord, forgive me. The verb ighfir, forgive, is grammatically a command. But think about it for a second. Is a human being commanding God? Of course not. The context, speaking to the Lord, completely transforms this command into a heartfelt, desperate plea for mercy. This is context-defining meaning, perfectly.
And, on a completely different note, if a teacher or a friend says, odros jayidan, study well, they're not barking an order at you. The imperative here is softened into just a piece of good, encouraging advice. Same grammatical form, but the tone and the relationship between the speakers changes everything.
And there's no better place to see this incredible flexibility in action than in the Quran, where this verb form is used with just
Unbelievable depth and purpose. Let's start with the prayer of the prophet Moses. He says, "My Lord, ishrah for me my chest." The verb ishrah means expand. Now, grammatically, that's a command, but he's about to face this huge, monumental task of confronting Pharaoh. In that context, it's not a command. It's a powerful plea for confidence, for strength, for divine help.
Now let's flip the script. Look at this verse for a complete contrast. Here, God is addressing the believers. Irka'u, isjudu, a'budu, bow, prostrate, and worship. These are all plural commands. In this context, coming from the Creator to the creation, they are absolutely clear, direct, authoritative commands. It's a call to action.
And we see this again and again. Here's a final example from the prayer of the prophet Abraham. He says, "Our Lord, and ib'ath among them a messenger." The verb ib'ath means send. And again, it's that imperative form, but it's not a demand. It's a humble, forward-looking prayer to God. It just goes to show you how central this verb form is to the very language of supplication. So, as you can see, the imperative verb is so much more than just a simple order. It's this incredibly versatile tool for requesting, for advising, and maybe most profoundly, for praying. So I'll leave you with this thought. Now that you can spot it, now that you understand how it works, how does that change the way you hear the tone and the intent when you read the Quran? It opens up a whole new dimension, doesn't it?